Good morning, friends, and thanks for joining me with this morning's Devo. I want to expand a little bit on this concept of the flesh, because I've been talking about that from the book of Philippians over these last number of weeks, but I feel like that there's some holes that I need to fill in. I talked about this idea that the flesh is that which will not last. It's important, I think, to say that because the Word became flesh. Jesus, the Son of God, became flesh and dwelt among us. And that wasn't evil, but Jesus was taking simply in himself a form that will not last. Human frailty, human flesh will not last. But the Bible also has a spectrum of how it talks about it. Flesh is a very interesting and a very nuanced concept in terms of how human beings are put together. So then in Paul's arguments in the book of Galatians, you've got the works of the flesh are plain and the works of the spirit. So the works of the flesh and the spirit, they're pulling and warring at each other within us. And so there's this sort of idea that flesh is evil. And I think that that's where typically we get our sort of bent on what we think is flesh. But what's interesting to me is that flesh isn't always evil. It is that simply that will not last. And here's how this plays out. Let's just say that you are in a traffic jam. You're on the way to work and you're in a traffic jam and people are cutting you off and all kinds of things like that. And you go in, you're fairly calm and you start to heat up inside and you're like, oh, what is the deal with this? And there's an internal thing that maybe it's your old story that we're talking about, your old you. It isn't necessarily all bad, but it's your old you, your old story with your old triggers and different kind of things like that. And you start to heat up inside. You're not thinking, I want to kill anybody. You're not thinking, I want to, although that may be on the table, but you're thinking these kind of thoughts and you're heating up inside. You don't do anything about that. You don't give birth to sin. What you do with what's going on inside of you can be sin or not sin, but what's going on inside of you might be just the cumulative effect of your story or a set of circumstances or things like that. That's flesh. That's simply what will not last. So if you listen to a lot of news of politics and different kind of things like that, and you start getting heated up, flesh. If you're in a situation where you're with your small children and they just start irritating you and you start heating up, it's flesh. What you do with that can be sin, or what you do with that can be walking in the Spirit. You can decelerate, but you don't have to go with the triggers of your flesh. But that's kind of this nuanced thing that we're talking about when we're talking about working to and living into that which will last. We're talking about walking in the Spirit. We're talking about being able to handle well our flesh, our old stories and those different kind of things, and walking those out in a way that pleases God and benefits people. So again, just trying to provide a little bit more detail on that, because I think when you start to get that, then you can start paying attention to what's going on inside of you and saying, you know what, I don't have to go in that direction. That direction is actually going to be destructive, or it's going to be sinful. It's going to put me in a place where I'm going to be hurting others or hurting myself or whatever that is. And you don't have to go that direction. You have a choice. So that's the flesh versus the Spirit. We'll continue this conversation as we go forward.